Who does number 2 work for?
I will not make any deals with you. I resign. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. I will not make any deals with you. I resign. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. I will not make any deals with you. I've resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. I will not make any deals with you. I've resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.
And just like that, the program began. Hello. Welcome to Alistair Cook's Masterpiece Theatre. Tonight's production of The Prisoner, starring Patrick McGowan, Leo McKern, and a bunch of other limey bastards. So, we are doing our show. We are live. I hope everybody is having a good Friday. It's going to be fun talking about this weird, super weird show that I saw as a little boy in the midst of the 60s, going into the 70s, and left me riddled with nightmares because of that damn fucking ball that would absorb people. I'm like, what is going on? I was just left to my own devices because I was left to watch TV by myself. I mean, they call us latchkey kids. My sister says, no, we were just simply neglected. And I said, either way it goes. I was left to my own device and I'd watch this show without any parental advisory or guidance. And I was just riddled with nightmares from this show, but couldn't stop watching it. I couldn't. It was next to impossible to avoid shows like this. So, but how old were you, Red Shirt, when you first saw it?
5 years old. And
same difference.
It came on right in prime time. I was after dinner and I started watching it because it just followed the show I had been watching. And my mother was in the kitchen a few stairs up. We had a split level. So she was quite close to the den where I was watching it, and she heard it. And what brought her to the room was the noise of Rover going after that guy in the little square with the pool. And he roared, when Rover roared, she's like, what is he watching? And she came down and she looked at the television as the guy got pressed his face into the outside of the balloon, and then he disappears. And she ran across the room and shut the television off.
It's absolutely nightmare fuel. It really
was. I thought I had dreamt it for 10 years until I saw it again, and I went, I'm either having the most intense case of deja vu I've ever heard of, or I saw this before. So, yeah, I saw the first few minutes of Arrival when it first aired and saw it again in the 70s when it was on PBS. And
I don't know.
That was my first introduction to the whole series.
Yeah, and you sit there, and as a kid watching it, you're like, how am I allowed? Nobody's stopping me from watching this show. And
how were you even watching this at 5 years old? I wouldn't have been interested.
Well, we had public television. And if it's on public television, it's got to be okay.
No, this was on CBS. This was actually primetime CBS.
Maybe I saw
it at 8 o'clock at night.
But I thought it was PBS. I
in
saw
the
it.
70s, PBS brought it back. And that's when I watched the whole series. But yeah, it was on American television nearly from the beginning. It came on a little
Well,
after it first
it was
aired
in
in
the
Canada
60s when
and
I
Britain.
saw it the first time.
Yes, and that was its first broadcast in the U.S.
So it was on CBS. That's when I saw it the first time. And
Okay.
that show is so bizarro.
Oh,
And to hear his commentary when he finally did a breakdown in these videos, which we have all of them right now, thanks to Martin uploading some of them because I couldn't get them all uploaded. We got all 8 clips. Some clips are like 30 seconds long, and some of them are like 3 minutes. I think the longest one is, what was it? It's 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So, but my gosh, his explanation and breakdowns, it would have helped to have had his guidance on how to watch his show when we watched it the first time, because his breakdown of some of the stuff really helps make sense of it. But I do know that over the years, a lot of us who also watched Danger Man made the connection, because in the series at the very beginning, the intro, the photograph of Patrick McGoohan for the prisoner was actually the headshot from Danger Man, of Danger Man. And so therefore, later on, making the connection that the prisoner was an offshoot of the show made perfect sense.
it was.
Because
I mean,
never
he was
told
he was
why
always
he did it.
ambiguous about it.
Yep.
He was always ambiguous about it. I mean, that's a very there. It is absolutely true that the picture that gets X'd out of his ID card when he resigns is from Danger Man. But at
Yep.
one point early in the series, number 2 says, "I just want to verify some of the information we have on you already," and he lists his date of birth. And number 6 says,
Yeah, his actual date of
correct.
birth.
And that was Patrick
Patrick
McGoohan's actual date of birth. So yeah, there's both of them there. If you catch the clues, if you know Danger Man, you see the ID card. If you looked up Patrick McGoohan on IMDb and looked up his date of birth, you'd be like, that was his. So there's a lot of his. I mean, there's a lot, and we'll see this in the clips. A lot of his character in this story is autobiographical.
And that's kind of interesting because he's such a weird guy. I mean, first of all, a lot of people don't know he was born in New York City and raised in Ireland.
Yep.
And for a period, England. So he has the strangest accent. If you've ever listened to him speak, even Anima caught it. We were watching him on Columbo. I do believe it was when he's the character, the colonel or whatever he was, running the military school. He says things in a very strange way. His accent is very odd. And but also, by the way, in the episode where he plays a spy who's committed murder on Columbo, he says 4 times during the show, "Be seeing you." 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
I
like
thought that was nifty.
Ornis. It's like it was his "I'll be back."
I'll be back. I'll be
Yeah.
back.
Yes.
He didn't say I'll be seeing you. He says, "Be seeing you."
Yep.
And I thought that was really kind of cool. By the way, I'm going to bring this up during the show because there's this guy named Jordy Lyons that keeps messaging me every once in a while out of the blue. Told me he was a mod for Midnight's Edge, and I'm like, not that I'm aware of. I know everybody at Midnight's Edge. You know, I'm a moderator on their Facebook group.
They have a lot
So
of
I'm
people.
like-
How can you know all of them?
So I'm like, and he just sort of keeps giving me like advice and weird stuff. And I noticed that he's followed by Brandon, the anime guy, and that 70s rock fan. So I asked them, like, who the fuck is this guy? Why does when he messages me, he comes at me like he's a con man. Like today, he said 25,000 pounds is already in a holding account, and then it's an image, and then he writes proof of funds. He wrote that to me, and I'm like, what the fuck is this guy running Dodge? I don't understand who he is. And but he's followed by mutual friends of ours, and then his last message to me twice this morning. He did the one with the proof of $25,000 funds quid. I'm sorry, 25,000 pounds sterling. Then he says, "Have you been getting copyright claims? Check your keywords before rendering it to YouTube." The clapping hands, and I'm like, "Are you out of your fucking mind? Who messages people like that?"
Weirdos.
I just and I've just, while I'm doing the show, I'm going to fucking block this guy. I'm done. Because even Brian came back to me and goes, "Oh, sounds pretty dodgy to me." And I went, "Yeah, maybe you guys should unfollow him too." And I'm just fucking blocking this guy now. So I'm officially blocking this guy. He's just had the weirdest conversations with me. And I even went to Six about it. He goes, "Yeah, that guy's a weird dude. And no, he's not actually a mod." I don't know, man. Did you hear the chimes at midnight? Yes, I did. The fuck are you talking
But
about?
did you
tonight?
count them?
Are you at work right now? He's at work right now, so.
He would be here if he wasn't at work.
Oh, let me.
I suggest everybody message him all at once and ask, "When are you getting off work?" Just everybody message him that. "When are you getting off work?"
Yeah, fuck you, Shemansky. Eric said something that's not true because he said he was on Columbo twice and he did 4 episodes.
He did 4 episodes and he directed 2 of them.
Yeah.
And that was something that he was so grateful to Peter Falk for helping him, because he really wanted to direct too. And so, and he had a very good friendship with Peter Falk. And by the way, my absolute favorite episode that he did of that one is when he is the guy that runs a Hollywood mortuary. Is absolutely one of my favorites, and he directed the episode. Not only that,
really good one.
His oldest daughter plays his receptionist in it. It's really, I love that episode. Yeah, fuck having an income. Oh, man.
This is YouTube. We don't work around here.
Now, I don't think Anima has ever seen the movie Braveheart with Mel Gibson, but I showed her the clip. I didn't know you'd seen it. I showed you the clip where he throws his son's general commander out the window. And it's one of my favorite moments in the film. Tell me what you think of this, and it throws him out a window. Patrick McGowan was such a great actor, man. Just really was.
And he was
we almost had him as James Bond.
I'm glad he didn't.
I think that it's interesting that he almost became a Bond, and because of that, we got Secret Agent Man and The Prisoner, because he didn't want to.
Yeah, he actually referred Sean Connery to them.
Yes,
so
he
Connery,
did. That's right.
Yeah, Connery getting getting the role first was partially because of Patrick McGowan, and he turned the role down twice, not just once. He did not
was considered for Dr. No.
And I don't think he would have been right for Bond, but I still sometimes had that little fantasy. What would a Bond been like if Patrick McGowan had played him? I'd say he'd be a lot edgier.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Well, the first one is in 1975. By the Dawn's Early Gleaming is the episode where the very first one he ever did, he was the head of the military school. And then like the last one was where he owns the mortuary. and he kills one of the women from what were the old ladies that lived together? What's that show called? B. Arthur was in it. Nobody. Thank you for being a friend was the theme song.
Nope.
No, that's never going to build.
I'll go to Google. It knows everything. The name of the show was The Golden Girls. And what is her name? Rue McClanahan was the murder victim in that episode that he kills. And she, of course, was from Golden Girls. If McGowan had been Bond, he wouldn't have slept with anyone but McGowan's wife, who was hot. So good, I think. And she was with him, as I recall, till his death, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, read this comment. I freaking love
He was
it.
devout Catholic, by the way. He couldn't have played Bond because he's not a number like 007. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't play a factor in the prisoner having a number. What do you think? Red shirt.
Yeah, we have the clips from the interview and question and answer session. And like I said, there's a lot of Patrick McGowan's own attitudes towards society, the fact that everybody's being assigned numbers and that's how you're classified. Governments like, to use numbers to keep track of people. And he was very much against it. And so that all of the numerology, all of the issues with numbers in The Prisoner is going to be coming straight from his pet peeves. I think is safe to say. He just didn't like it.
Yes.
He thought it was a bad trend.
Numerizing people.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's get it started. This is video one is him explaining the show to the writers, which was an experience all to itself.
How would you have described or explained the concept of the series to those writers? It was the first time you sat down with them. What did you tell them?
It was very difficult because they were also prisoners of conditioning, and they were used to writing for, the Saint series or Secret Agent series. And it was very difficult to explain, and we lost a few by the wayside. I sat down and I wrote a 40-page sort of history of the village, sort of telephones they used, the sewage system, what they ate, the transport, the boundaries, a description of a village, every aspect of it. And they were all given copies of this. And then naturally we talked to them about it and sent them away and hoped they'd come up with an idea that was feasible.
That's, right off the bat there, they ran into some certain issues while writing this show because they had to have access to his brain constantly in order to make sense of it for at least themselves, much less the audience. But it seems like, and I would say he got a certain amount of pleasure out of people being confounded and confused.
Oh, I agree with that.
He
I do
definitely
know
had
that.
fun with the last episodes. Yes.
Oh, he did.
Crazy.
Yes. And I mean, one of the things that should be recognized was we start the discussion is one, he wanted 7 episodes. That's what he wrote initially.
He invented the
Originally
miniseries.
said-
Yeah,
That's
but it wasn't
exactly.
enough for them.
And television wasn't ready for the miniseries yet. So the producer, the big guy with
Lou
the money
Grade.
said, Lou Grade
Lou Grade.
said, I can't sell a show with only 7 episodes. I'm going to get you some writers, and you're going to have to write some more episodes. CBS
And let me
wants.
explain something real quick
Go ahead.
here about Lou Grade. Lou Grade was a guy that was involved with a lot of shit that a lot of us nerds like, especially if it came from Britain. And Lou Grade, we wouldn't have Gerry Anderson if not for Lou Grade. Lou Grade backed almost anything Gerry Anderson made, him and Sylvia, his wife. And to be honest with you, Gerry Anderson was at his best when he was married to Sylvia, because Sylvia kind of grounded him and his story ideas. And that's why when they separated, things kind of went south for Gerry Anderson. Would you agree with that? Red shirt.
I haven't seen enough Gerry Anderson to know where his work
That's the
changed.
challenge for you next. Then you
Okay.
need to
Yes.
watch.
Well, I
all the
remember
good stuff
Gerry
from
Anderson shows.
Thunderbirds Are Go,
Yeah.
Captain Scarlet, Space
Yes.
1999, UFO.
Remember that.
Those
Yes.
4 shows are
Okay.
essential Gerry Anderson shows that
Yes.
worked when Sylvia and he were together. When they
Okay.
separated, everything fell apart. Lou Grade was the money guy. And
Yes.
we wouldn't have had Gerry Anderson, and we wouldn't have had Danger Man or the American season that they did of Secret Agent.
Right.
It was still the same.
And he would, and as McGowan said, everybody involved with Danger Man / Secret Agent would have preferred that he just keep making episodes until he died. And he had run out of interest in it, and he wanted to do something different. And Lou Grade asked him, this is in an interview that I saw, he talked about it, and he said, well, I happen to have a treatment for a show that I'm thinking about. And he put this inch-thick binder on the table and starts pitching the show to Lou Grade. And, Lou said, well, I can't sell 7 episodes, so we're going to get you some writers, get you all together. And that's when he wrote the 40-page treatment of what is the village all about, and what does it look like, what do the people there do, and all of the things. Now go off and see if you can come up with a story. And the second thing he invented, and they didn't have the title at the time, but he was so involved with the directors, with the writers. He was the Bible. If a director came on to do an episode, the first thing you'd be told is, if you have any questions about how a scene should work, ask Patrick, because he knows.
Yeah, because it's all part of his id.
Yes.
It's all part of who he was.
And in fact, I
was
think
the prisoner.
Yes, and I think he can be credited also with creating the role of showrunner, because he was
because they didn't even know what to call him. But
right.
That's why he was.
That's why he was credited as an executive producer, because they didn't have the term showrunner yet, and they probably when did that start? 1990s?
I think it was in the 90s when I first
90s.
It could have been all the way back in the 80s, but really I think it was the 90s the first time I heard it.
Right. And but the point is that he invented that too. So you have a guy who knows everything about a television show, which has never been happened before, because all television shows up to that point were created by committee. And this is a show created by one person who is the authority, capital letters, intentional.
Yes.
He's the showrunner. It's supposed to be a mini series so he can tell a tight, focused story. And they said, we can't sell that because TV wasn't ready for a 7-part miniseries. So he wrote 17 episodes with the writers and came back and he said, can't you do more? And Lou Grade said, can't you do more than that?
He split things up. He split things up is how he ended up doing it, which is why sometimes they're thready in the way they're connected to each other. But in a way, this is also inevitably how they would eventually do Doctor Who, because basically Doctor Who early on was several short, 15, 20-minute episodes that would make up an hour-long story.
Right.
To an hour and a half. And eventually that's how, when they started the series over in the 2000s, they started doing the 40 to 50-minute story arc.
Right.
And it was basically taking those mini episodes and putting them into one And that's why you would end up with less episodes a season. Whereas you had more previously because they were broken up into minis. And so what he ended up doing was the same sort of thing by splitting the episodes up and filling them out as much as he could with weirdness. I gotta be honest, with fucking weirdness.
Oh yeah,
And
surrealism.
Surrealism all over the fucking place.
Well,
And by the
Just
way,
one
this is
thing.
Lou Grade. This is Lou Grade. I want to show a
Okay.
picture of it.
There you
Here
go.
he is. That's Lou Grade. He was a cigar man. This is
Oh,
one of
yeah.
my favorite photos of him right here.
Wacka,
Wacka, wacka, wacka. Wacka, wacka.
If you think about it, this television series overlaps the very end of Star Trek, the original Star Trek. You had a parody of James. You had several parodies of James Bond, both on television. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. You had Get Smart later. You had Our Man Flint, which was movies.
Well, Flint was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. But you had Our Man Flintstone. I wanted to go see that as a little kid. My mother was like, "You're not going to go see that." And I said, "The Flintstones? Fred, Wilma, whatever." And she's like, "Oh, I thought you meant Our Man Flint." Yeah, you can go see that. And that was a parody of Our Man Flint. So television in a lot of ways,
Flint, a lot of people
especially
don't know, was a parody of James Bond.
of James Bond. Yes, it is. In fact, it's a much better parody, in my opinion, than the Spy Who Shagged Me and those movies, because they basically killed Bond parodies forever. They're funny at times. I mean, there's no question, but they just blew that market out of the water, for better or worse. That's your opinion may vary.
I wholly agree with you because I thought the Flint character was an American, first of all, but and another one it did was Matt Helm, was another James Bond parody while Bond was being made. So you had these two American parodies to James Bond that were really funny as hell in how they did them. So
because they took themselves, especially Our Man Flint with James Coburn, took itself perfectly seriously, and it was silly, but it never looked at the audience and winked, if you will. It was always done as though, yes, we are doing a spy show just like James Bond. And you're sitting there laughing at it because it's goofy and absurd. The Get Smart would be the other example, but Get Smart knew it was silly, and it let the audience in on the joke.
I miss Spy that much.
Bingo. Yes.
The cone of silence. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Get Smart knew.
Get Smart didn't hear you. He didn't hear you. This is exactly what Red Shirt was just talking about. That when he wanted to go see this, but his mother thought she meant a man called Flint. He goes, "No, Flintstones." She said, "Oh yeah, you can go see that."
We should say hi to the chat, Gerry. We haven't done that yet.
Oh, who wants to talk to them? The riffraff.
Oh,
shut the fuck
I love
up
the
and say hi
chat.
to them.
So. All right. Let's see. We got oh my God, get it all the way to the beginning. We got Tim. Tim needs his video, Martin.
Oh yeah. And
take your time.
Here it is. What? Yes, here it is.
By what name are you known? There are some who call me Tim.
So we got Eric in the chat. Eric said, hey, got room for another number co-show. Anyone? Oh, somebody want to send him an invite? My parents got me a pretty big Amazon gift card last year, so I used it to buy a great condition used copy of Prisoner Blu-ray box set. Look at that.
Nice.
And he was never heard from again. and had in my mind. It's pretty recent too. It's good. I don't. What is this? What's he talking about?
That is available on YouTube. You can find that on YouTube. It's a very good documentary
About the prisoner.
about the prisoner, the making of
Oh, okay.
some of the
I'm going to watch that
symbolism
then.
and all of that. Yes.
I like when he slams his hand on the table as he resigns to tea saucer breaks. I love that whole opening scene. Like, what is he talking about? What is he saying? I am not a number. I cannot be indexed. I resigned. Not a number. We want information. I am number two. Who does number two work for? That's, of course, Austin Powers.
Right.
I got a solution to who is number one based on Patron McGrew and Clue. I'll mention it at the end. Okay. The Penny is here. Hi, Penny.
Hey, Penny.
That's prisoner with a hard R. I make number two every day. I remember that. Once a miniseries remake.
Thank you.
It
for
is
that.
not a remake. That was terrible. Terrible.
Oh, it was. Oh, no, that was bad.
And I'm a fan of everybody involved in that.
Yes.
Just terrible.
The writing was the problem.
Yep. Bonjour, mon ami. Bonjour. Christian Delorme and Vinyl Revival. Just Another Red Shirt by Penny. The UHF. What is this? It was on UHF for me in the late 70s, I think. Well, yeah, because like PBS for me was, I forget what channel it was, but it was on UHF. I grew up around DC. And so we had several channels. The only channel above UHF was Channel 5, and Channel 4, that was WNBC, which had some well-known anchors on, including Willard Scott was the weatherman. And Channel 5 had Panorama, and eventually in the late 80s was bought out by Fox, and it became a Fox affiliate. And that's where we got Mr. President, when George C. Scott was the first Fox sitcom, followed them by Married with Children. So let's see.
Yeah, I was lucky enough I lived in northern New Jersey during the 70s, growing up there, and I got to see Monty Python on PBS. I got to see The Prisoner on PBS, and in the New York area, we had more than the normal 3 channels. We had I don't know, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, and Channel 13 was the New York Public Broadcasting Station. It was VHF. Because none of the TVs we ever had would get UHF. It looked like Cinemax when they were scrambling it. You hadn't paid for it. That's what UHF always looked like to me on the television. So it's a good thing it was on VHF.
Back in the day, you had a regular channel selector, but then you would put it top center, and then you would use the outer ring to find those UHF channels. And I had a Hitachi TV that had a UHF finder and a regular channel selector on that. And I watched a lot of PBS in my room. I was hoping that there would be gratuitous nudity occasionally.
Yeah, I was just going to say, why does that sound dirty when you say that?
Monty Python's Flying Circus had it.
Monty Python. Well, so did certain like Caligula.
Oh God! Oh yeah. Well, that was way past gratuitous.
Yes, because Claudius had the character of Caligula in two major episodes, and oh my god, I was a kid, prepubescent kid, going, yes, please, yes, thank you. Let's see. So Joshua Konepke, this is a new person. I don't recognize your name, Joshua. Welcome to the show. I've been rewatching this over the last month. Incredible show and still applicable by today's society. Absolutely. Everything in The Prisoner can be interpreted still to this day. and be useful.
Unfortunately.
What do you
yes.
mean still? The planet has become the island.
Yes.
McGee has an interesting accent.
Yeah, he
Let's
did.
see. Hail, Gerry and panel. Hail to you, read by nature. I am not a number. Yep, there we go. I am an icky. I never remember the whole line. My daughter does. We are no longer the knights who say neat. We are now the knights who say icky, bing, bong, 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 and then they quietly fade out.
Again?
Let's see. He directs that episode 2 of Columbo.
He
Yeah, he
directed
directed
3
2
of
of
the
them.
4 episodes. No, 3.
No, he directed 2 of the 4.
I just looked it
2
up,
of the
Gerry.
4.
It says he directed every one of the 4, but the first one.
I thought he didn't do the ones in the 70s. I thought he did the one that came out in the 90s and the one that came out near almost 2000, because he was pretty much done by that point when he played the owner of the mortuary. The Columbo episode in a funeral home, you can tell Patrick and Peter are having fun. There's that scene where they're kind of challenging each other out near the end of it. And Peter just sort of wanders off and he goes, "Don't have a body? Are you there, detective? Are you there?" He's not. He's already gone. He's still delivering dialogue. I fucking love that episode. Let's see. And it started a mystery of its own on that one, because there's a mystery within the mystery of the death of this actress, famous actress, who is based on the character from what was the Sunset Boulevard or whatever that movie was. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille, that movie. Man, you guys are terrible at fucking trivia today. I gotta fucking look shit up. Fuck you. No, don't even try now.
I'll try.
William Holden.
I thought we were talking about
narrates.
The Prisoner, not Sunset Boulevard.
It all is interconnected. Haven't you figured that out, Red Shirt? Sunset Boulevard. I had the name.
Well, you talk about all interconnected. Patrick McGowan played the warden of Alcatraz in the movie Escape from Alcatraz.
Yes. Alcatraz, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to talk about role reversal? He actually is effectively number 2 in that movie.
Here's another weird one. Interconnected. In real life, before being deployed to Korea, Clint Eastwood was on a training flight with the pilot, and they crashed into those waters, and he had to make that swim because he was a swimming instructor in the Army. And he and I think it was the co-pilot were the only survivors of that crash. And he made that swim, which inspired that film to be in that film.
Yeah. It's a good film, by the way.
Because he's like, I made that swim.
Exactly.
Survived it. And he believed that they made it too. So yeah, but anyway, again, great film, and he is really good as the warden in that film. If you really wanted to, you could connect just about every Patrick McGowan role to the prisoner because he's playing himself.
Pretty much, because that's what I was trying to say. That's what I was saying. He's in The Prisoner. He's in part he's playing himself, and there are some other clips that I gave you that you cut out. And
we've got them all right here. Let's get to the next one because I love these clips.
Yeah,
I love these clips. Clip number 2, Purpose of the Village.
What about the philosophy, the rationale of the village? What did you tell him about that? It's raison d'etre, not its mechanics, but its guts.
A place that is trying to destroy the individual by every means possible, trying to break his spirit so that he accepts that he's number 6 and will live there happily as number 6 forever after. And this is the one rebel that they can't break.
Fucking love that.
Yep.
And you can tell as the interview goes on that so much of this is based off of his own frustrations as an actor.
Oh yeah.
And a
Yeah,
creator.
that's what it's when Luke when LeGrade said, "Well, what do you want to do?" I don't think he was prepared. I'm not sure that anybody was prepared for what Patrick McGoohan came up with when he pitched The Prisoner and when they started making it.
If I could get a medium to call on Luke Grade from Beyond the Grave, I have money that says that his one regret was The Prisoner.
Yeah.
To what end was that process of breaking down the individual will?
To what end?
For the village. What was the purpose, the goal?
I think it's going on every day all around us. I had to sign in to get into this joint.
Me
Downstairs,
too.
yeah.
Made you angry too?
Slightly, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Pass keys, and let's go down to the basement and all this. That's prisonership as far as I'm concerned. And that makes me mad. And that makes me rebel. And that's what the prisoner was doing, was rebelling against that type of thing.
But can you, in everyday life, can you summon the will and the energy to rebel every time that
you
petty
can't.
indignity occurs?
You can't, otherwise you go crazy. You have to live with it. That's what makes us prisoners. You can't rebel, otherwise you have to go and live on your own, totally rebel, or you have to go and live on your own on a desert island.
And how
it's
much?
as simple as that.
And just a great example of that is becoming a parent. Becoming a parent, you become a prisoner. And this is what our kids don't understand. They think that they're trapped.
Right.
We're the ones that are trapped. And I kept getting so frustrated with my daughter more than anybody. One day, she's like, I'm trying to teach her how to not kill herself by washing dishes. This is how you avoid killing yourself, is by washing your dishes, rinsing them. And it's like, if you're not going to wash, let's get a washing machine. Just rinse them. All you have to do is rinse them all. And she would just rebel against this. And she goes, you just want slave labor. I said, if this were slave labor, I would fucking kill you or sell you because you're useless.
I've told you before, Gerry, it's called weaponized incompetence. He was doing it bad on purpose. So you would.
And you think they're the one rebelling against you, when you, as the parent, are the one that is trapped in this insane relationship with a child that doesn't seem to want to understand the simplest things of surviving life. And to this day, I thank God that every boyfriend she's ever had washes dishes. Because she sucks to this
That's
day.
great. But I want to finish.
No, that's it.
Okay. I want to throw in.
I understood his rage.
Yes.
This.
For the benefit of Anima, who just watched this for the first time, not all of it, but most of it, and anybody else, who watched this and just whose reaction is still WTF. The idea that we all have to make accommodations to the petty tyrannies, the inconveniences of society. You have to sign in to the venue because they want to control access. You have to get a driver's license. You have to get an eye test. You have to do all of these. If you've ever been to the DMV or register your motor vehicles if you're in Massachusetts, you know what the village is like. You know, the only difference is you know who the prisoners are and you know who the warders are, because the warders are all the people who are in charge at the registry or division of motor vehicles, and they are very much in charge. And I have never been to do anything involving the privilege of driving a car that didn't make me sympathize with number 6. I mean, I want to just walk in there and deliver his speech about, I will not be etc., etc. I'm a free man. You have to put up with so much nonsense, and that's what he's talking about. And you can't. Well, if you want to drive a car on public roads, you have to put up with that nonsense, and that's your
And
prison.
yet we see
That's your
people
village.
rebelling against that. We got people trying to do the number 6 thing to this day, which
Yes.
is, why do I have to show you my license? Because you have to have a license to drive on the road. And some people just simply refuse, and they just get into all kinds of trouble. And the thing is I try to explain to them, it's like, you call that a public road, but the fact is it's built by tax dollars, by state employees, and it's managed and maintained by the state, county, or township. And so therefore, whoever regulates that road is the one who gets to dictate the laws. And so therefore, if you have to have a license on it, you have to have a license on it. To try to rebel against that just really, it's still a repeat of the prisoner. People are still trying to fight the system, buck the system. And it's like, look, man, it's the system. That's the way it is. If you're born in a state, you have a federal ID number that's given to you the time you're born. And what a lot of people don't know is that number dictates where you came from. My first 3 numbers to my Social Security number show that I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia.
Yes.
I don't even know how our numbers work in Europe.
And by the way, we can play a real quick game here. And this is just a very simple thing, which is you determine if it's true. I was born in Granite City, Illinois in 1964. So how can I have a Virginia Social Security number?
Because
Anybody?
that's where you were registered?
Yeah.
My dad and my mother never registered me.
Huh.
My dad registered me when I was 10 years old. Or 9. I was 9 years old in Virginia for the first time for a Social
How
Security
did
number.
that fly? How did they get away with not registering you?
Good fucking question. In fact, somebody put it to me, is it possible that you have another Social Security number that you don't know about?
Bum, bum,
And I stopped
bum.
and I went, and I didn't know how to respond to that. I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, well, that's what I just said. You wouldn't know that you don't know about it. Again, I don't know that I don't know. I don't know. But is there a possibility? I've never put any effort into it to look and find out. I'm just assuming that, look, these are the same people who don't remember whether I had chickenpox. These 2 people, my mom and my dad. Did I ever have chickenpox? I don't know. I'm like, my dad, I'm your only son. Did I have chickenpox? I don't know. Do you know how I had to find out? When my kids got chickenpox and I didn't get sick from them. And I took care of them. I went, oh, I must have had it. Finally, it was confirmed 3 years ago or 4 years ago when I got shingles.
Oh, yeah. That's a sign that you had it.
Yep. That's a heck of a way to
painful one.
find out, too.
Yeah.
I was a man with no nation. So let's get back to the videos here. We got, we just finished Why Rebel Against
Wait.
the Village.
We haven't tried to find out if you were lying or not. We haven't determined yet.
I was kidding. It's like, I'm telling the truth. So anyway, back to the videos. Why Rebel Against the Village was the last video. This one is McGowan's reaction to the audience reaction.
How did you feel about the response to The Prisoner when it was first shown in Britain?
Delighted. I wanted to have controversy, argument, fights, discussions, people in anger, waving fists in my face, saying, how dare you? Why don't you do more secret agents that we can understand? I was delighted with that reaction. I think it's a very good one. That was the intention of the exercise.
So it was an exercise.
He was playing games with the people.
That's what he was doing. He just admitted to the fact that he wanted to fuck with people and see what they would do.
Exactly. Yeah, and I've talked with a lot of people over the years who were fans of this show, and everybody that I've talked with has a different take at either the ending or of the purpose. And of course, I don't think most of them have seen the interviews with Patrick McGowan, so they don't have it from the horse's mouth, as it were. But even in these interviews that you're showing clips of, he's not giving everything away. And the whole point of this, quote, exercise, as he calls it, was, to me, an admirable one, which we complain about today with education, is that education is telling people what to think, not how to think. And what the prisoner wanted to do, what he wanted to do with the prisoner, was make people think. They didn't have to think deep thoughts about it. They didn't have to think logical thoughts about it. If all they did was, go on to grab a pitchfork and a torch and storm the castle a la, Frankenstein, hey, at least it was a reaction. So this series, the reason I think people still talk about this, that we're talking about it, it's been talked about on YouTube before, there are documentaries about it, is it was made not to tell a story that had an ending that everybody would understand. It was meant to tell a story that would make people wonder, just what was that all about? And to make you start to think about the meaning, the underlying meanings. And there's another clip that you'll get to where he talks about people writing, coming up with all kinds of hidden meanings in The Prisoner. And he was happy with that. He was flattered, I think is the word he used, because his purpose in doing this was not to tell a story with a pat start, a middle, and an end. This was not an Alfred Hitchcock, to pick one of the great movie directors, who said things like, if you show a revolver on a mantelpiece in Act 1, you better have the character shoot it by Act 3. And Patrick McGowan would have put a revolver on the mantelpiece in Act 1, and then you never would have seen the mantelpiece or the pistol again. And then you'd spend the rest of the episode wondering what happened to the pistol, what happened to the revolver.
It's Kubrickian.
Yes.
And, because it's like, why is the chair there in one scene? Cut away, cut back, and the chair is missing. Cut away, cut back, and the chair is back there again. And it's to put a splinter under the skin of your brain is what it's about. And it's not having everything spoon-fed to you, which is why, like The Prisoner, Kubrick's The Shining is still debated to this day.
Absolutely.
He's been dead for 20 years, and they're still debating his movie.
And Stephen King still hates it.
Which I think is the best part.
Yes.
My favorite part of all this is when, what's-his-face, the Irish guy, the writer, that did Gerald's Game and all that shit movies, he did the sequel, Dr. Sleep, and got Stephen King to accept and acquiesce to allow him to use elements from the Shining movie that Kubrick did, not Stephen King's version.
Right.
So he had to eat another shit sandwich with that. I love that. That Stephen King had to take another paycheck and eat another shit sandwich on top of it. I love that. But Not everything needs to be spoon-fed to you in storytelling. Some of my favorite writing makes me do some of the work, and I'm okay with that. What I don't like is when after I do the work, it doesn't make sense, and then I get frustrated. I'm like, look, I did all the work here, and this is where the prisoner lies, which is why it's so frustrating to this day for so many people, and I get it, which is you just want to. I don't mind doing the mental gymnastics. What I do mind is the mental gymnastics just kind of not going anywhere. But maybe that was the point of what he was doing. And clearly, when you hear him in this interview, that the mental gymnastics was what he was trying to get done. And not everybody had the same routine. And that's interesting to me. It still
and it was rare, and it's still rare in movies and television. There aren't many movies or television shows
that we're taught.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you can think of one, but I can't think of many shows that didn't end with what most fans of the show or viewers of the show considered an ending. A few of them have been ambiguous, but nothing quite as weird.
I don't think we have had as large an impact on an audience as The Prisoner and Seinfeld.
Well, because
Right.
it's
Seinfeld-
impossible to be like meh after watching a show like that. We talked before.
What's funny
You either
about
love it or hate it.
Seinfeld, and even Seinfeld and what's his name? I forget the executive producer, co-creator of the show, discovered was that the audience didn't give two shits what the story was about when it was a regular episode, but they cared when it was the final episode. And that's why that got such a backblast from the audience, was because they did something just like every other show. And that was a problem, because that was the one show they weren't allowed to do that with, was the final episode. And so they've always said that the only thing that they would have done differently is they would have shown them out of jail. Larry David, thanks, Reed. Larry David and he agreed that they should have shown them walking out going, what was that about?
Right.
And that would have been something for the audience to accept. It's like, there you go. Instead of ending with them still in jail, because that was very dissatisfying for fans and upsetting for them, that you just can't arbitrarily end that way. The Prisoner, on the other hand, ended exactly the way it ended. There is no other interpretation other than basically, this is what he gave you. Do with it what you will. I've always perceived it that he went right back into the fight and repeated the cycle.
Yes. And
that was how I always read that ending.
You have a clip of McGowan saying precisely that this is an endless cycle. And I would say, somebody said it in the chat, we all live in a village. And he said that in this interview. We all live in a little village.
That's right.
And so
I think it's this one right here.
Okay.
Wait a sec. No, it's the escape one. So let me go to this one real quick.
There's one sequence you do with Leo McKern where he says, I'll kill you. You say, I'll die. And he says, you're dead. Is that a figure of speech, or was there something happening, an underlying thing happening there?
You're talking about Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time.
Well, that was very interesting, that one, because you say, which was my favorite episode earlier on, Warner. That was probably it. That was one that was written in the 36-hour period. And Leo McKern, who is a good friend of mine, a fine actor, I think, came in at short notice to do it. And it was mainly a two-hander, a brainwashing thing. He was trying to brainwash me, and in the end, number 6 turns the tables. And the dialogue was so peculiar because all it consisted of mainly was 6, 6, 6, and 5 pages of that at one time. And Leo, one lunchtime, went up to his dressing room, and I went to see the rushes, and I knew he was tired. I went up to the dressing room to tell him how good I thought he'd been in the rushes, and he was coiled up in the fetus position on his couch there, and he says, "Go away, go away." He says, "I don't want to see you again." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I've just ordered 2 doctors," he said, "and they're coming over as soon as possible." He says, "Go away." And he'd ordered 2 doctors. And they came over that afternoon, and he didn't work for 3 days. He'd gone. He'd cracked, which was very interesting. It was terrific pressure, you see. And so I had to use a double the back of a guy for a lot of the shots. And eventually Leo did come back, and we completed it. And also he was in the final episode, so he forgave me for everything. But he did crack. It was interesting, I thought.
Phenomenal. Because there is... that is such a bizarre episode, Once Upon a Time. And it is so beautifully done. And at the same time, you can actually see the moment where one gets the upper hand over the other. And it was so well acted. And then you see Leo McKern's character break, and he dies. He has a massive core in there. His
that
character.
only one can survive.
Yeah.
This is how desperate he is to get this information, risking his own life. And I think it's funny that McGowan had the time of his life. It's his favorite episode, and his partner almost had a mental breakdown over it. That's how different he saw doing it.
He did have a mental breakdown, but
he cracked.
But as McGowan said, he forgave me because McGowan
came back for the next episode.
He came back for the final episode, and that was filmed about in the middle. By the way, Once Upon a Time, it was not filmed just before the ending episode, which is why Leo McKern in that episode, in the Once Upon a Time episode, has long hair. But when he comes back for Fallout, he has a buzz cut, and his beard is gone. And that's because he'd gotten another role in a military film, and he had his hair cut to play a British soldier. So they had to come up with a way of introducing him back into the role of a former number 2, and they shave off his beard and they cut his hair. And that's early in Fallout. And then for the rest of Fallout, we see him with the haircut and the beard and no beard and the mustache that he had in his other role. So they were quite a ways apart. Leo McKern had time to recover, went back to work, took a movie role, and finally
did a Beatles movie.
Yeah, and I'll come back to Fallout. But yeah, there's we'll keep going on clips. When we get there, I'll point it out because there is.
Yeah, this is the one I think we've been waiting for. Is we all live in a village, a little village.
Yes.
Okay, do you regard the village as an external thing or something that we carry around with us all the time?
It was meant to be both. The external was the symbol, but it's within us all, I think, don't you? The surrealistic aspect of it. We all live in a little village.
We live in a
now, your village may be different from other people's villages, but we all got a...
Well, I know who the idiot is in mine, which is...
yeah, number 1.
That's right.
Same as me.
That's
right. But that's another crucial statement by McGowan for understanding this, because to look at it on its face and say, okay, the village is a place that he gets sent to, and all of this action happens there, and it's just what happens to him. It's what's done to him after he resigns. When I just thought of something not that long ago as I was rewatching his episodes. I said, well, what if he was so traumatized by his career and decided that for peace of mind, I have to retire, I have to leave. And as he's packing his suitcase, you see his brochures of holiday resorts, beaches, and so on. And all of a sudden, he's kidnapped out of his apartment and he's taken to this place. Well, the thing is that we find out in the final episode, Fallout, they credit where this was all filmed, which is a seaside resort in Wales. So, in effect, you could if you want to interpret, if you want
A
to get
resort
really,
he'd been to.
yes, when filming Danger Man. And he thought,
Yep.
he put it in his mental Rolodex and said, this is a place we should use as a setting for something. I don't know what it is yet, but we should come back here.
It took him a couple of years to come up with a story for this series.
Yes, it did. But the thing I was thinking was, and now I'm going to get into the possible, like number 6 is paranoia, is that what if he actually did go to one of the resorts, but he was so bent, broken, and mentally constrained by what he was walking away from, that he imagines himself to be in a prison when in fact he's supposed to be on vacation in a resort. And the movie that immediately made me think of for comparing how somebody can perceive something one way when the reality is totally different is Shutter Island, where in Shutter Island we see a character who believes himself to be an FBI agent investigating a crime, and his wife and his family was killed by supposedly a crazed murderer. And by the end of the movie, we find out he is the murderer, and he's been in this place for years.
Well, he murdered his wife, but he murdered her because she had killed the children.
Right. But he was then committed, and they're trying to bring him back to reality because the trauma of what she did and what he did had broken him.
Yep.
And I only present it. I'm not
and
saying
in fact,
it's an answer.
This is the tragedy of that story, is that he was self-aware.
Yes, he was.
By the end of it. And he made the choice to be to have surgical lobotomy done.
Right. But
So
I'm proposing. I'm just proposing that we've seen in that movie somebody whose perceptions of what's going on around them bear little to no resemblance of what's actually going on around them. So the problem with The Prisoner, to look at it from the standpoint of, I'm seeing a person who used to be a spy who's been taken to this prison, which is this weird Italianate coastal resort in Wales, and they want information from him and he resists them. And that's the surface of it. But and this is where the deep. This is where people get into. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you also hit on the fact that he's an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
Just like with Shutter Island.
Exactly. So we don't know whether he really is experiencing what he's seeing and what he's saying and what's happening to him, or whether it's his interpretation of what's going on. And so I guess my point, and this is again to anybody who's, has maybe seen it once, is on the surface, this is one story. And if you listen to him in the clip you played where he says the village exists to break down the individual, remove their freedom of choice, and make them accept their number and their role and live there for the rest of their lives as happily as they can. And that number 6 is the rebel that they cannot break, is that's one level down. And then there's more levels down. And the problem with trying to understand this show is that you can go down rabbit holes, and plenty of people have. I mean, you can go on the internet, you can look at YouTube and see videos, you can read articles, but the point, again, from McGowan was, you don't have to come up with the answer. As long as you're thinking about it, I'm happy. That's what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to be made to think about it. So,
Richard, let's watch this one real quick. It's a minute and 3-second video of him talking about escape.
Symphony.
In the final episode, does the prisoner really consider becoming the leader of the village?
No. He does not. He just wants to get out. And he uses a technique which he hasn't used before that, which is violence. Which is sad, but he does. And that's how he gets out. And then, of course, in the final episode, he goes back to his little apartment place, and he has his little valet guy with him. and the door opens on its own. And he goes in. Cars there and that, so you know it's going to start all over again because we continue to be prisoners.
And that leads to my last question. What would the former prisoner be likely to do with his newfound freedom?
He hasn't got it, which is the whole point. When that door opens on its own, and there's no one behind it, exactly the same as all the doors in the village open, you know that somebody's waiting in there to start it all over again.
Yeah, because that's what always bothered me is that I didn't know anybody open it. I thought it was just already open, and that bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
When he goes in, the door's already open. But I guess, yeah, it's automatic, just like the doors on the island. And so therefore, he's doomed to keep repeating it over and over again.
Right.
It's, what do they call that? That little movie, Groundhog Day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but the difference of the prisoner is that he can't learn enough. Unlike Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day, who, I mean, people have estimated as much as he spent 100 years,
1,000 years or some shit.
1,000 years or 100
10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the
crazy.
point is that there's nothing for him to learn. And that's what's unsatisfying about the ending. He can't escape this because he's created it. And the village is at his apartment. It's opened the door for him, and the butler goes inside while he drives off in his car. And we see him race towards the camera exactly
like he
the
did
way
in
he did in the first
opening.
episode. So
Yep.
you could easily say that there was that was the beginning of season 2 of The Prisoner, and they just never made it. And the village would be someplace else, but he would still be a prisoner in the village. And I think that's what he was saying with we all make our own, we all live in a little village. We make it for ourselves, and it exists wherever we go. So he gets out of the village. He drives away in the truck, in the cage. He gets to his apartment. There's his car. He and the butler get there. He jumps in the car to drive away, and the butler goes up to the door, to in front of the door. And when the butler stands on the top step of his porch, the door opens. And the butler,
It does.
yeah, and it's like, oh wow. And I had to rewatch because I'll be honest, I saw that interview and his comment, and I thought, I never paid attention to that. And I watched it today, and I watched Angela Muscat, the butler, walk up to the tops of the steps and watch him drive away, and the door behind the actor opens with the same noise of the same sort of motor that opened the doors in the village, and he walks inside and it closes with a thunk. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't catch that. It's like a second and a half, 2 seconds of the final episode. It's like he said in another clip that you've got, he didn't give you a long shot of who number one is, and that was intentional. He didn't want to make it that easy for you to tell who number one was when he finally sees number one. And so the last episode has a lot of distracting elements in it that I think is part of the reason it confuses the living daylights out of people.
Nothing makes sense in that episode. Nothing.
Yes, exactly, because it's hard to see the forest of the trees. And I've been watching this for 40 some odd years, and I've only just recently seen Fallout and said, I think I understand what's going on in sequence here and how it ends and why it ends that way. And that's a long time and a whole lot of viewings. And I won't even claim to have the definitive answer, because the only person who had the definitive answer is Patrick McGowan, and he's gone.
Yeah, he took that shit to the grave, my friend.
Yep.
Let's get to this last 28-second one, which is called Be Seeing You.
This is a kind of banal question, I guess, but if you could leave one sentence or phrase or paragraph in the head of everyone who watched the Prisoner series, the whole series, one thing for them to carry around for a while when it was over, what would it be?
Be seeing you.
Just that. Enigmatic to the end.
Be seeing you. And it means quite a lot
It does indeed.
He's seeing you. Yeah.
That was a dumb question. Of
You
course
know
he
what?
would do that.
In that moment, that 28-second video, there's one word on there that I just want to punch the guy for saying. It can be called banal, or it can be called banal. It is never called banal. There's no E in it. It's an A. He says banal. And I'm like, I just wanted to punch him for saying that. You can say banal. You can say banal. You cannot say banal. Fucking British people. They're fucking up
Yeah,
words.
and it was a dumb
Drives me
question
crazy.
too.
But seeing you is an important aspect to this show. And you and I have been saying that to each other since we met. Because I just
And now I
love you.
finally know where that comes from.
Exactly.
Seeing you.
And to me, that circled thumb and forefinger has always been a keyhole. It's always been, the old-fashioned skeleton keyhole on a door, where if you get your eye right up to it, you can see into the room. It's a reminder. That and the phrase are a reminder somebody's always watching.
Somebody's always
watching. And never forget the gesture where you're making with your hand. It's a B.
It's also a 6.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, as he said, there's a lot to unpack with that. And if it's, first of all, it's throughout the series.
I see it as a potential threat, too.
Yep.
Because when you're going to take that long shot, you'll be looking through a scope.
Right.
Seeing you. I perceive that as a threat if somebody said that to me without knowing this show. If somebody just arbitrarily said that to me, I'm like, what the fuck do you mean by that? I would be very abrasive over somebody saying that.
I've seen you two doing that, and I just thought you were weirdos. But now I know where it comes from.
Well, you're correct in that. We are weirdos.
Oh, I know.
But let's get some of these starred comments I've got here. Hey, I got a solution to, quote, who is number one, end quote, based on, and it is end quote, not unquote, based on Patrick McGowan's clue. I'll mention it at the end. We're still waiting, Eric. Who's your favorite number 2 besides Leo McKern? Leo McKern is the only favorite number 2.
Exactly.
We wouldn't have Danger Mouse if it weren't for Danger Man. Danger Mouse is the bomb. And in GoldenEye, they pretty much based 006 on him. I think it's sad, though, that, they got Sean Bean to play him, and Sean Bean always dies. Yes, the best part of Kubrick's Shining is that he, Stephen King, hates it. Yes, I agree.
Sean Bean survives in Ronin.
I'm trying to remember what happens to him in Ronin. I can't remember.
He's kicked out of the group because he's
lying. He faked his yeah. It's surreal and nothing makes. Actually, he was hit by a car leaving. It's surreal and nothing makes a lot of logistical sense in how people would do anything, but makes perfect sense in a metaphorical sense or a dream. And I think there is something dreamlike about The Prisoner.
Oh, I think there's a lot.
I mean, the fucking orb itself is nightmarish dream material. Some of his mannerisms and speech patterns remind me of Michael Caine. They were acquainted with each other, so that could be something he did on purpose. In my mind, you are smart. The village is the pressure to conform for everyone. What do you think of that one?
I think that's a great comment. That is what he said. You can either rebel at every turn, in which case you're going to go crazy because you'll spend your entire life arguing, fighting.
Yep.
or you go live on a desert island with no one else around. So the
Which
village
is the
is what
failure
you
of-
do. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with you, because that is the failure of the prisoner, not the show, the character, is he's constantly in rebel mode.
Right.
And you do that. There's no...
Yeah, it's exhausting. I mean,
and
it
you're
really
doomed to
is.
repeat because you're constantly at war.
But
I think oh, what? Go ahead.
He's still, and again, I'm getting this from one of McGowan's comments in his interview. You have to make accommodations, and he's forced to. I mean, eventually he uses "be seeing you," which is a common farewell in the village, and he adopts it. Now, he may adopt it for his own reasons, but partway through the series, he begins to say "be seeing you" when he parts ways with someone else in the village. So
also
over time,
he recognizes his own futility, which is why in the final episode he does something he's never done before, turns to violence.
Right. And I just to me, and again, this is a recent revelation to me, or at least a recent idea for me, is that the village, in the sense that it's internal, is what we all carry around with us, and we say, I'm going to accept this. I'm not going to fight this.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your battles, right? You've heard the phrase. So the
Pick the
village
hill
is
you're
all
willing
the
to die on.
Right. And the village is all the battles you choose not to fight. That's your prison. So we all have them. We all have things, we all have hills we won't die on. And that's our village. And it's funny, you talk about it as a metaphor like that, where it's like a hill you'll die on. Because if you look when he's in Arrival and he wants a map, the mountains surround it. The ocean is on one side, and then there are mountains surrounding it. So those are all the hills that he can't get past because Rover won't let him.
Now, Eric
So
says
yeah,
here,
so it's a mind. It's screwing with his mind, which is a very common theme in the episodes of The Prisoner. But McGowan, in writing it, is screwing with the audience's mind, and that's also
Absolutely.
intentional.
Absolutely agree. Eric says here, I think it's simpler allegory. In the Mind documentary, McGowan gives McKern a signed photo with a cryptic message: 2 + 4 + 6 = 1. That is the cipher. Number 1 is the riddle of the Sphinx.
I
Your
have
thoughts?
something. Red?
Go ahead.
I again, I think that there are so many different ways of looking at this, and I'm just to say this for the benefit of people who disagree with us. I'm not going to tell you
There's
you're
no
wrong
single
at
answer.
all. There is no single
Yeah, there's
answer.
no
to
single
this.
answer.
But if this series makes you think, and it makes you think about any of the things we've discussed or will discuss on this show, and you go back and watch it again because it's like, I want to see whether what I thought made sense now makes sense now that I've seen it. Let me see if it holds together as I watch it. Then you are doing exactly what Patrick McGowan wanted you to do in making this series. He
And is
wanted
now
you to
done
think.
from beyond the grave.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I said I think I used the term haunted. Yeah, this is a haunting series. If you get into it and you really won't let it go. Hi, Boosh. If you really won't let this thing go, it will grab a hold of you and you will just keep coming back to it over the years.
Absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, it doesn't have an ending other than what you assign to it, what you decide happens at the end, and what the meaning is of what happens at the end of Fallout. And I've heard a lot of people saying, this is what I think the end of Fallout means. But the fact that we're still fascinated by it, I'm still fascinated by it. I have it on disc. I watch it on a regular basis every year or two because, again, I mean, it's something that it's been a part of my life for most of my life. And there isn't anything else been produced, certainly nothing produced since on television that I find as compelling and as strange and as interesting and as timeless as this. As has been said, today, this thing still resonates. The message in this series still resonates in society today. Think about that for a minute. This was made during the Summer of Love in the 1960s. And we're still saying, hey, this has
right in the middle of the
today.
hippie movement. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's amazing to me because there isn't much from the 1960s, and I lived through the 70s. I remember those. Luckily, there isn't a heck of a lot from the 70s that really resonates today because thank God disco's dead and it's staying
I
that
hated
way.
hippies when I was a kid. I thought they were gross. I do want to thank Radioactive for gifting 10 Pop Culture Minefield memberships. He gifted to Bush McFadden, Awesome One, James Ritter, A2 Brutus, James Caserta, Rod Thunderheart, Legion Talk, DJ Play Nice, and Victor Fontaine all got free memberships today from Radioactive. Thank you, my
That's
friend.
awesome.
You're a good dude, man.
I need to steal something
That's
from
fun.
Culture Casino and say hello
Wow.
to Rod Thunderheart.
I love Rod Thunderheart, man. Cool
We need a
dude.
video for Radioactive.
Let's see. A Man in His Youth, a.k.a. number 4 or number 48, Alexis Canner, in his middle-aged prime of life. Number 6, McGowan, and an older man, the number 2 with McKern. I think he was onto something with age involving their numbers. The Butler is number one pin ever. And it's so odd that it's a dwarf man. It's dwarf man. Who's a dwarf man?
Well, Eric, the Butler being number 1 would be logical for this being a real place where the prisoner is simply sent there. For the prisoner, number 6 to be number 1 is a psychological trick. And the question is whether you want to view the ending of this or view this series as it's presented or as the prisoner is perceiving it. Number 6 is perceiving it. So again, I'll say that's just as valid an explanation as the prisoner is number 1, because maybe they're still screwing with his mind, because when he first pulls the mask off of the person labeled number 1, it's an ape. And then he pulls the mask off the ape and it's him. So are they still screwing around with his mind? Which one of those is right? Is number 1?
Well, then when he goes in
who
and
is-
there's
who
the
is it?
mannequin, the mannequin looks just like him.
Yep. And has his old
Yeah.
clothes on. They said, we thought you'd be more comfortable being yourself. So he takes clothes off the mannequin and he dresses himself in his old clothes. And he no longer has the piping on the lapel of the jacket he's been wearing in the village all this time. He puts his old clothes. They restore his old clothes to him that they took away from him in Arrival.
Yeah. Joshua Kanapke says, at Eric, I've thought about the Butler being number 1, but he's been seen at the same time as number 2 getting a call from number 1. Now, that could be him having somebody impersonate him. It very well could have been, because it was one of the things that popped into my head is that he might actually be number 1. So I don't know, this show is always going to have me questioning shit. Booth McFadden, of course. Hi, Richard. Hi, Anima and Martin. Oh, he called you Animal.
What? Oh my God, guys.
It was.
So
I'm certain it
difficult
was.
about my name.
I don't think he had any trouble with it. I think it's auto completion did that to him.
Might
It sticks to me all the time. Donna Summer was a goddess, and you are gay. Thank you, Bush. I deeply appreciate that. I try to think of myself as, powerfully over the top gay.
80s gay.
And I'm 80s
For
gay.
me, I
Yeah,
hope.
that's right. Of course, for you. I'm gay for you.
Oh.
So, but I don't know. We've done a really fairly good job here of doing our breakdown of the series. I loved watching these videos. I almost would like to watch a whole documentary again, because there was that other interview he did where the kid was ill prepared, and he ended up helping the kid in the interview, and I thought that was wonderful. And you know why I think he enjoyed that? You know why he enjoyed that? It's because he saw this kid as a blank piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing is more exciting to a creative person than a blank piece of paper.
And
that's
that interview, I don't remember what it's called, but that interview and that whole documentary about this young guy, I've never done television before. They gave me a film crew, a director, and I had to get Patrick McGoohan to sit down and talk with me. McGoohan was famously difficult to work with. And
difficult, uncooperative.
Right.
This kid was a blank piece of paper.
Right. And something
that's
about
what
him
enticed him.
Right. And he took, it's almost as though he took pity on this young guy and said, all right, I can't just shut you down. You have in good faith come to me and said you want to talk to me. There are times in the interview where he's just about ready to say, screw this, I'm out of here. If you watch that documentary, but in the end, he keeps coming back, and he can't bring himself to just shut this young person down and say, come back and see me when you know what you're doing. And that's a fascinating documentary, if only because, it's a person who has no connection to him and really little to no experience in the industry. And McGoohan just obviously takes pity on him and says, all right, I'm going to give you an interview. And that's almost
a very good interview
for him. It's an excellent interview. And I'm sure there are any number of interviewers, experienced talk show hosts and so on, who if they saw that documentary, were just like, that SOB shut me down so many times and refused to come on my show. But this wet behind the ears kid gets to make an hour-long documentary interviewing Patrick McGoohan. Damn it. It's not fair. So that one is one worth watching. I wish I could remember the title of it, because I know I've seen it, but not recently.
I don't know. I'm reminded of in The Haunting of Hill House with the line, "It goes to show you." Instead of it shows to, it goes to show you. It shows to go you.
Now hear the word of the Lord.
Youthful rebellion.
Oh, thigh bone's connected to the knee bone connected to the thigh bone. Hear the word of the Lord. I love when he.
There's another film that used that, by the way, that I just a couple of years later, 3 years later, was a very dark comedy called The Ruling Class with Peter O'Toole. And he used that song in it. It's a transitional scene, very important scene. It's where he goes from being the character who suffered from a mental disorder, believing himself to be Jesus Christ, all loving and all forgiving, to suddenly changing and becoming very harsh. And he sings that song and does a whole musical dance scene in the movie. And in the final moments of the film, you realize that science has won and cured the man of believing he's Jesus, and now takes on the same initials, but calls himself Jack. Jack the Ripper. And he kills the woman at the end. And it's such a brutally dark comedy with Peter O'Toole. If you've never seen it, it's one of my favorites. I saw that as a kid. I think it was 9 when I saw that. And I'm like,
What is
I
the name
like this
again?
movie. It's called The Ruling Class.
Yep.
And it's a film I have a copy of that I've wanted to show Anima for a while, but I just got to make sure she's in the right frame of mind to watch it. Because if it's not perfect, she will not enjoy that movie. And I know it.
I'm curious now.
You can be all
But
curious
yeah,
all you fucking want. If you're not in the right frame of mind, I'm not showing it to you.
Okay.
Because
But
I
yeah,
love that movie.
The Prisoner's one of my favorite series. It kind of hit me like a bolt of lightning when I saw it because I just randomly heard about it, and I rent Netflix when they had DVDs back in the day. I was like, oh, I'll check out this series called The Prisoner. Seems kind of interesting. I had no idea about any of the reputation or anything else, but it just, I don't know. I always felt I kind of got it from the get-go, but then again, I have a very different kind of upbringing. In particular, like, I didn't think it was a literal spy show, or I didn't have the reference point of like Danger Man or who Patrick McGowan was. So I was going,
Being a
you
spy
cannot
is a
take this
device
series
within the
literally.
story. As you discover going along, it's really not important at all. Being a spy, it's just a device that's used within the story. What's really going on is about control. And it's like, my God, because at first I thought, does he know something that he's not supposed to know, and they're trying to find out if he knows it? It has no, that's not really what's going on at all. No, because they would have found that out.
The way I always took it was part of it was that near the beginning I was going, I don't think we're supposed to find out, in part because if you think about it in the terms of society versus him, we're part of society. So us wanting to know, if we find out, that's bad for him.
Oh, you say that if the audience finds out, it's bad for him.
Yeah, because it's him
as if the
versus
audience
society.
exists within the show. You're saying that the audience itself exists within the show.
No, I'm
saying
not metaphorically, yes. Literally, no. I don't take anything within the series. I don't believe you can take the series literally.
Yeah, there's nothing literal or linear about the show. The show is it's metaphorical, it's allegorical. It's there's nothing literal within the show. I don't even think death is literal. We find that out because number 2 gets killed, and then he's revived miraculously for a whole musical thing. It's ridiculous, dude.
Oh, just there's other things, or at least things that I guess I picked up from because of my own particular POV, like the fact that when it's the big number 1 reveal, it's also going I. Well, if you just do a capital I, but you don't really do a detailed version of it, it looks exactly like a 1. So it was literally just going number 1 I. So it like preps you for that, and it's telling you that repeatedly before it even shows you it.
Yeah. It's all deals with the id, ego, self. Bush McFadden, what was that last thing he said? Hey, Kyle's here. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Sax.
What was one he
to
said
see you.
before that, Martin? Episode 1. The map is titled Your Village. That's right.
Yep.
Not our village or the village, your village.
Right. Yeah, there's so many clues. I mean, one of the ones that I know people have thought about or proposed
Scott.
is in
Scott.
the
Hey, Scott.
Scott Lewis.
Be watching you, buddy.
It's in Arrival, and then it's in the intro to every one of the following episodes, where one of his questions to number 2 is, who is number 1? And number 2 says, you are number 6. Well, if you put the pause in a different place, it becomes you are number 6.
Mm-hmm. You are number 6.
Right. So it's
yeah, because you and I talked about that before. that if there's no comma there, he is telling him.
Right. So that's the level at which people have drilled down into this show, and like I said, I'm not going to say that anybody's interpretation is wrong or right, because I don't think
there is a right or
McGowan
wrong.
cared. I don't think he cared.
No.
I think all he wanted was that people would think about it. And that's, to me, that's the message. The message is not your particular or anyone else's particular interpretation of the show. It's, if you watch this show 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm up to, I don't know. I think I lost count after about 12 times watching it. If you watch this show and you keep thinking about it, you find other things and you go, wait a minute, what did that mean? That's exactly what it was all about. So if there is anything that this show is all about, it's you need to see what your life, you need to be, it's about introspection. It's about understanding yourself and your role and your place in society, and what you do to accommodate other people and what they do to accommodate you. And that's my interpretation of this. And yes, that's a prison, because everyone else's expectations. There's a famous, I don't know if it's in the first episode or it's one of the first couple, where it's even quoted by one of the characters, that questions are a burden to others and answers are a prison for oneself.
It's on a poster.
Yes, it's in an office, and it's one of the slogans. It's like, you saw in collectivist societies where they had their propaganda posters and they had pictures of leaders, and then they had, phrases like that everybody would repeat. So it again, it's like back in the 60s, height of the Cold War, very much Great Britain, United States were both felt that they were locked in an existential struggle. Whether they were or not, there was always, quote unquote, the button, and all you needed was one person to push one of those buttons, and then you go back and you watch Dr. Strangelove, which I don't consider to be a comedy, by the way. I consider it to be a horror movie. I can't watch that and laugh. I watch that and it comes close to bringing me to tears by the end. So Stanley Kubrick was brilliant in a lot of ways, but that movie I've never been able to see as even a dark comedy. This is not a comedy, and it has its very, very dark moments. But again, it's thought-provoking, and that to me is what's valuable about it, because there were so many shows on at the time. I mentioned Star Trek. Star Trek was thought-provoking for television of its day. And then for a while you had, the opiate of the masses, or whatever you want to call television at the time. Maybe it replaced religion, which is a phrase from Marx. So religion is the opiate of the masses. I think television became the opiate, and people just sat down and watched TV and didn't think. And I think that bothered Patrick McGowan, and he said, I want to make a television show that will make people think, which is tough to do. And I think he did. I think he did a brilliant job, and it's why we're still sitting around here 50 some odd years later talking about a movie or a television series of 17 episodes that in the United States wouldn't even qualify as half a season.
Yeah. Well, to me, like, especially for understanding, or at least making it so that I have something I can understand with the ending. Once upon a time, especially in the middle, because there's conversation where Leo McKern's looking dead in the camera, and he's going, just says society. Society is the place where people live together. The lone wolf, I forget the exact rest of it. It basically says the lone wolf is like, I must keep you from becoming a lone wolf. You must conform. That's the entire gist of, really, to me, breaking down what the entire thing is, and the reason they're doing it in the first place is an individual. If it's society views individuals, they can't control them. They're afraid they're going to blow everything to hell, and that's basically what happens at the end of the series.
Right. I think one of the other things that McKern says after that is the status quo must be preserved, which is conformity. It's go with the flow that we already have. Don't push boundaries. And number 6 is the one person they can't make preserve the status quo, the village. He is always disrupting the status quo of the village. In one of the early episodes, he's declared unmutual. It's a very odd word. But in the context of the episode, it becomes very, very obvious that it's considered a crime. You are not mutual. You are not cooperative. You are not part of society. You are outside of it. 150 years ago, that term would have been outlaw.
Does this not fit today?
Of course.
As a subject. By the way, I want to point this out because as we're wrapping up here, he did another TV show that a lot of people don't remember. It was a 3-part miniseries, and he also did a film, which was part of it, produced by Walt Disney, while Walt Disney was still alive, where he played Dr. Sin from the famous books of a vicar who puts on the guise of a scarecrow to fight injustice in the late 1700s, early 1800s.
I love his fucking voice in that movie too.
Oh, it's good stuff, dude. It is good stuff. I remember just loving it as a kid and finding out that was the prisoner. Like, that's the same guy. I love those. Patrick McGoohan. And most people don't remember that he was in a Disney movie and miniseries about Dr. Sin, character from classic novels. Do you remember that stuff at all, Redshirt?
No, I'd have to go look that one up because I have not
Go
heard
look it
about
up, dude.
Scarecrow.
He
Romney
dresses
Marsh,
up
I
as
believe
the
it's
Scarecrow.
called.
Okay.
That's the miniseries. That was the miniseries. The movie was done the same year. Both were shot in '63. And hold on a second, let me get the series was called The Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, 3-part series, and then is it the same thing? Because I thought it was 2 separate stories.
Oh no! It's that they basically sold it overseas as a movie, but they did it as a mini series for the Wonderful World of Disney. So they basically cut the movie up into 3 parts.
Okay, so the 3-part series was turned into a movie, so that's why that makes sense. So, but either way it goes, you can actually watch it as a film too. But it was a mini series, and I just remember really liking it as a kid, watching it on the Wonderful World of Disney on Sunday nights.
Oh, was always there. Watch that religiously.
Back when Disney was good entertainment.
Yes. I know that's hard to believe, folks, but there was a time.
Walt really gave a shit about entertaining kids and families. He really did.
Yeah. And
you know, the last thing he wrote down before he died, the very last thing he wrote down?
Kurt Russell.
That's right, Kurt Russell. You know what I always said? It was an incomplete sentence. It was Kurt Russell killed me.
No.
That would be then. It would be the computer wore bloody shoes.
Yeah, bloody shoes.
Oh.
It's like Kurt Russell did it. I've been making that joke since the 80s when I found out about it.
By the way, I need to run a little video here.
Hey, fuck you, Carl.
Yeah, it's like, Kurt, you can't go in there with the president of Walt Disney Companies, and then he just goes and kills them, and then walks in and goes, the president of what?
Radioactive still needs a video too for the 10 membership gifts.
Yes. Oh, yes. Let me find a video.
It's a shame that YouTube doesn't let you choose who you give the membership to.
Well, first of all, I want to play this video. Hey guys, don't forget to click that like, subscribe, and notification button. We appreciate you watching the show. Now, Back to it. Back to it.
I keep forgetting he has that.
You should have said backdoor it.
Let's get backdoor it. I mean, to it. Yeah. So, we got Sentai Ranger Donnie here. Yeah.
New name, okay.
And
that's done on Ranger Power.
I know.
Yeah, it's done on Ranger Power.
That's a new name.
The one person who is new here today that I don't recognize at all is, where's it at?
Joshua.
Right there. There we go. Really good comments. This guy is clearly also a Prisoner fan like the rest of us. So it's really cool.
I'm
Glad
not-
you joined us
hello?
today, Joshua.
I'm not a fan of that show.
I'm not including you in that one.
Fuck you.
Retconning.
It's snotty with me. I'm gonna get snotty back.
I could have sworn he had that actor had appeared in like one of the or was a model for one of the super marionettes, because he just looks so familiar to me. And then I looked him up on IMDb and I went, I don't think I've seen anything he was in, except I think he was in Where Eagles Dare as a German officer. I think it's the only other thing I've ever seen him in. But I agree, actually, he was kind of an interesting number 2. But he was a fall guy. He was a patsy. He was the one who was supposed to be assassinated, if I remember it correctly. It's been a while since I've seen that episode. But yeah, he was an interesting number 2 because he didn't look the part. Most of the number 2s were older.
My favorite episode is
kind of
Hammer into
Duck,
Anvil.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Yeah, I was just watching Living in Harmony earlier today, and I was just another one that was one of those. It was supposed to be screwing with his mind, but almost as well as in Once Upon a Time, he turned the tables on them, and they realized that he had figured it out far earlier than they expected, and was just playing a role and seeing where they wanted to go with it. And their whole plan falls apart completely. So there's the escapes, there's the screwing around with his mind, and and of course, Once Upon a Time is the ultimate example of number 6 decides to go after number 2 directly. And I think that's what the writers came up with as their main themes for everything but the first and last episodes, because obviously McGowan said in the interview that somebody else wrote Arrival and he looked at it and didn't like it, and he rewrote the entire first episode himself. So the first episode and the last 2 episodes are entirely his. I think he said he wrote 5, but he couldn't remember exactly how many, because it was about 10 years later. But yeah, he was hugely influential. And the thing that I love about this series is that it was one person's vision to tell one story for a particular reason, as cryptic and frustrating as it is to watch and try and understand. But it doesn't get watered down by the other writers, and it doesn't have bottle episodes the way we talk about series today. There's nothing that's just they put one in because they just needed an episode. There really weren't any in this. So it's 17 episodes, and it's 100%. It just isn't linear. There are better orders, viewing orders than the original broadcast order to watch. You can Google that, and there's probably 5 or 6 different fan specified orders in which you should watch the series The Prisoner, and they'll give for various reasons. I have a particular order that I use that Heel versus Babyface and R&B talked about this about 3 years ago, and they came up with their own order, and I like their order a lot, and that tends to be the order in which I watch the show now. So yeah, the broadcast order is not necessarily going to make it easier to understand. Because there are some, I mean, there's an episode that I think was probably right in the middle of the series where he says to someone, "I'm new here." Well, that makes no sense. It's the middle of the series, and he says, "I'm new here." So it's worth digging into different fans' recommendations for the order in which to watch this.
And this is why, by the way, somebody brought this up in the chat. When it came out, I didn't like it. Was the trade paperback 4-issue comic, in other words, The Prisoner's Shattered Visage. Because I remember when that came out in the 90s, and I just didn't like it. It came out in 88, but I didn't see it until like I was in the army. And I bought it at a comic book shop expecting to tie into the comic, Patrick McGoohan directly involved in this. And to my knowledge, McGoohan had nothing to do with the comic. And that they basically wrote off the final episode as a drug-fueled hallucination. I was immediately turned off by the book. And it's the story about, I'm guessing his daughter, because her name, she has the same last name as his original agent named Drake from Secret Agent Danger Man. So I don't know. It had some cool artwork in it, but I just didn't like it. Did you see it? Richard,
Nope.
Anybody?
No, I haven't seen it.
Came out in 88, and but I didn't buy my copy until 1991, and I was very disappointed with it. I'm going to get me another copy of it. If I can get a copy of it, I'll share it with you guys so you can read it too, because I haven't read it in 30 years.
I kind of don't
I
want
just
any more
remember being
prisoners.
disappointed.
Want something like The Prisoner.
Here it says, Shattered Visage received mixed reviews from fans and critics. Howard Foy of the Mutual fan site called the comic a major disappointment. I agree, due to its contradictions to the series finale, and wrote that, quote, "Fairly any sequel to The Prisoner must take as its starting point the closing moments of Fallout," end quote. Absolutely. To write it off as a drug-fueled hallucination is just lazy. Well, we don't want to deal with that.
No,
I'll get a copy of it. I'll share it with you guys. Yeah. But you'll find out I remember being very disappointed when I read it. It's sort of like I was disappointed with The Thing comic book. I think Dark Horse did it. I was very disappointed in that.
I didn't like the remake either that they did a couple of years ago.
Oh no, we talked about that earlier. It's just terrible. Great cast, great production people, terrible production. One of the few tie-ins comics was Billy Mooney's Closure comic series to Lost in Space. I thought that was actually pretty good, but it was written by Billy Mooney himself, a kid right in the middle of it. You know, he grew up in that shit. So I thought it was very entertaining. I didn't like The Thing from Another World comic series, and I didn't like the Prisoner sequel.
Billy Mooney also grew up in the Twilight Zone, so
explains his weird politics. So love Billy Mooney though. I really do. I think he's a bit of an idiot though. What's this? What did Cynthia say? Speaking of Prime Video, it launched the first ever game show, the 1% Club of Prime site. That just sounds like what? You become part of the 1% just by winning? I could play that. Wonder how well I do. Low Spec Linux is here. What's up? Anybody else popping in? Yeah, it's like, well, we're at our 2-hour mark. We survived another 2 hours, Red Shirt. Look at that.
We made it.
Do we get a badge for that? If it was in the U.S. Army, you get a badge for everything. I brushed my teeth this morning, First Sergeant. You get an award.
I deserve an award for
That's a
watching
joke.
the episodes that
That's
I've
just a
watched.
joke the Marines make. It's like the U.S. Army gets a badge for everything. Like you gotta practically die to get a ribbon in the Marine Corps. They have different standards. The Army, man. Oh God, they really do. They give like everything you complete, you get a ribbon for it. It's like really. Oh, yeah, it's like, so I got to wear that. I don't have to. Oh, good. I'm not adding one. Let's see. What is this? Oh, yeah. I shared Eric O'Sullivan. Thanks a lot, man. I did share it out on our page or on my page. I don't spend much time on the Pop Culture Minefield page, oddly. But if you see, and I'll tell you all right now, if you see Pop Culture Minefield in your chat on a YouTube stream or on Rumble, it's me. It's me. Because I've heard people, Tom, everybody go, I think that's Gerry. If it's Pop Culture Minefield on YouTube, it's me. Keith never logs in, ever. He goes as Keith Movie Geek. And Martin, I don't think you do anything under the name of Pop Culture except on our show.
No. I don't think it's appropriate.
Appropriate.
Since
So,
when do we talk about
what
appropriate?
so what you're saying, Gerry, is that if I'm modding on a stream and I see Pop Culture Minefield acting up, I know it's you.
It's me. It's me. I popped in on somebody's stream the other day. I said, man, I jumped over here hoping to be a gay show, and it just, you guys are weak gay, not the good gay.
Look, Eagley is getting pushy here. He's demanding a recognition.
Where's my badge? I survived 2 hours of this nonsense too.
Gerry,
it's
the
in
problem
the
is,
mail. I learned from Jack Burton.
The problem is it's not gay enough. That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah, see, I expect it to be just a little more. I expect there to be some gripping onto trees for dear life kind of gay.
Jesus.
That's from The Simpsons. It's one of my favorite lines. Not that weak kind of gay that you're used to. It's the kind of gripping onto a tree for dear life kind of gay. That line always kills me to this thing. Gripping onto life for dear life. I just
Sounds like the right kind of
got
gay for you.
some used giant 2-volt industrial cells. So you get the wires and you can connect them, lick them like that. Make sure it's connecting. Remember the episode of News Radio when Joe convinces Matthew to lick the track?
Jesus, yes. Oh my God. He's such an idiot.
That show. I love not having to hate, that guy because he's such a piece of shit in real life. But man, the character of Matthew is great.
I wonder how often he got injured filming the series because he has a lot of awkward stuff.
He was always doing pratfalls, yeah.
I mean, often he just falls behind the desk or out of the frame, but sometimes you really see him hit shit and stuff. So
there's this great moment on News Radio where Dave Foley, that plays the news director, Dave, comes into the shot and there's like a golf ball and he almost falls on his ass from it. And Matthew just starts laughing, going, it's usually me that ends up doing it. And then he just says, hey, Matthew, catch, and throws it at me, misses it, goes over the desk and does a pratfall. I thought that was hilarious. I love that show. Broke my heart when Phil Hartman died, man.
Oh, and how he died. Let's not go there.
Yeah, and the thing that really sucks is to find out that the kid who played Matthew, played a part in causing it to happen. And so once you learn that, it's just sort of like, I never allowed it to ruin the character of Matthew, but it really turned me off of him. And I don't care whatever happens to him. He earned it. Because Bree is, Phil Hartman's wife, had been off of booze and drugs for a while, and he convinced her to take a bump at a party, and it started the spiral right then and there that led to the end.
I just want to go back to the show and enjoy watching it, because this is always.
It is fun. I did learn not to watch it while I'm sleeping, because I have some vigorously odd dreams from news radio, and I don't think they're healthy. I'm like, fuck, man, I got to stop watching that while I'm asleep or listening to it. Holy shit.
Well,
those
I
are some
prefer if you watched
crazy
it with
dreams
me
I had.
anyway. Yeah, for whatever weird reason, I like hanging out with you. Something's
I
wrong
don't
with me,
get
I
it.
know.
I'm such a sardonic ass.
Yes, you are. You're a dick.
And I posted about it the other day because, Lauren asked me, sharing your feelings. I said, I mean, and then I thought about it. I don't ever share my feelings. I don't. No, that's weird to me. She goes, not with anybody, not with Anima, not with Zoe. I went, no. I'm affectionate. I know how to express love, but when it comes to my feelings, no, those are mine. I just don't share them with people because people might think I'm insane if I share everything.
I don't think I know.
Yeah, we don't think you're insane. We just think you're crazy.
I have a wall. My wall goes, you get to see me peeking over going, hey, what's up? I'm like that neighbor from not Tool Time. What was that show called? Home Improvement. Neighbor. Howdy do, neighbor.
Actually, in German,
That's me in my day-to-day life. It's just like I
forgot his name.
I thought about it, and because I'm like, I'd never been asked that before, and I'm like, no, I never share my feelings with people.
You don't actively
think
do, but I can read you pretty well by now.
Yeah, I just don't. But as well as anybody, I don't actively share my feelings with people. I don't think it's. I don't consider it functional.
Wilson, thank you, Reed. That's his name.
Wilson, there you go, Wilson.
There you go. I love it. It's the best character on the show.
Kilroy too. It's just I just never really thought about that. It's like I really don't share my feelings with people. It's just I think it's silly. For me, I think it's silly for me to want to share my feelings. Now, what I do is I write my music, I write lyrics and stuff like that. And even in my stories when I write, there's me in it. But that's the most I can ever do to share things. It's like past that, I'd feel like a weirdo talking about my feelings with other people. It's weird.
I think there's no better way to express feelings than through music. But that's because I used to be a musician. So.
Well, I tell people, I said, you can learn so much about me by the music I listen to and in the music I've created. It tells you a lot about who I am. Especially the song Commies on Welfare, or There's a Dead Mouse in My Room and It Smells Like Shit. Those songs tell you so much about me. When I was in my band, The Smelly Pubes. Now, one of you fuckers is laughing. Fuck you guys.
I'm tired. It's past midnight.
It's past my bedtime.
No.
I'm from Venezuela. I find nothing funny. You know what? In Anima, I have a problem with Martin. Don't tell him. He doesn't like the movie Short Circuit.
Oh man, I knew you were gonna do it.
Because there's another one, Red Shirt, that involves a number. Number 5 is alive.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to use that today, but Martin was all against it. He's like, I hate that movie. It's just terrible. I'm like, whatever. Computers being friendly if they gain sentience from being struck by lightning.
Hit by a fucking lightning? Yeah.
Eakley, how about you stop complaining?
Every episode is yes. That is what I do. This is how I get my therapy.
Exactly.
So we're going to do a real Would I Lie to You today. And I think I'll just go ahead and do one story and see if you guys, I got to go over to YouTube so I can add, how do I do that? I forgot. Start a poll. Is Gerry lying or telling the truth?
He only fooled Keith last time. The rest of us
True.
called him out.
Lie. He's gullible.
I think he
Yeah,
was
but
tired too.
All right. So here's the story. All right. So when I was 17 years old in the lunchroom, I got up from my lunch to go get an ice cream sandwich. It was either that one, because there were two things I would get. Ice cream sandwich was one of my favorites. Second favorite was when they started selling that cookie that's like what the Girl Scouts sell. It's a cookie with peanut butter and then covered in chocolate. And I really liked that. And they started selling that at the snack line in our lunchroom. So I got up to get one of those. And while I was away, a kid by the name John Sweeten, who I'm still friends with to this day, him and his sister, dropped a dot of LSD into my chili. And I ate it.
Duh.
And we finished lunch, and I'm walking down the hallway, and it started to kick in. And because I wasn't aware of it, I started having severe heart palpitations. I collapsed to the floor because I could see sound, is what I was trying to explain to somebody, because every time the clock made a sound, which is what I was staring at, it was like a ripple would come off of it. And people were creating waves around me. And I ended up in the hospital, and I got into trouble with the school. But finally, I had students that came forward and said that I didn't do drugs and that somebody had done this to me. And come to find out, it was a friend of mine who thought at first it was going to be really funny.
Why?
And here you go. Now you can pick. It is up on there, so you can vote right now in the chat. True or false? You guys, do you believe it's true, or do you think I'm just bullshitting you, shining you out, just making up names?
Even when you tell the truth, you're lying. Oh my.
Come on, guys, put in your vote.
I did it already. Oh, we have 4 votes.
I'm not allowed to. I'm too much of an insider to vote. This is for you guys, that game. Okay, so it's 3-1. Oh, 80% think that the story is true.
To move
How
this,
long are you
because
willing to let it go?
I don't want her name showing up. Dang it. Hold on. There we go. Now I can show this picture and show you the guy who did it. And he apologized to me. He did. He apologized and felt really awful about it. So have we decided if I'm bullshitting you or telling you the truth?
67% think it's true.
All right. You guys, red shirt.
6 votes.
Red shirt. True, false?
It would explain so much, so I'd say it's true.
I like your answer.
Martin.
Oh, that's true.
Kanatsky.
It's as honest as your face.
I have an honest face, so I'm assuming that means
Liar.
It is totally 100% true, and this is John Sweeten right here, and his sister, whom I'm still friends with to this day. That's what John looked like in high school too. He'd have sunglasses on. In fact, his best friend in school was Randall Hedge, and I swore up and down when I saw Beavis and Butthead that that's who they had used as the models. Because I'm like, there's no way there were two other stoners walking around laughing all the time. Like they laughed just like that. And that was him. And he was part of the skater crowd too. We're all skaters. That's him, John Sweeten.
Oh,
And his
you
sister
got
Elizabeth.
7 votes. 57% thought it's true. That's almost half.
There you go. It's a true story. Yeah. I felt like I owed you guys a true story because last week I made up a really lame one about my brother driving us down to Mexico and not being able to come back.
That was too boring to be true.
So no other new comments. So that's the end of the show. That's the end of the show. Appreciate everybody being here. I'm going to play the intro as the outro. So you guys can enjoy some more footage of the prisoner.
See you tomorrow.
And red shirt. You want to join us again? And if so, what would you like to talk about?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know yet.
Right. Because we have no plans for next week, but I would like to do something fun that we enjoy.
Okay.
So if you can be there, I mean, shit, if we got to do classic Star Trek, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
So, but
Just tell me
that's the
in time
video
so I can
for.
watch some episodes.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So here you go. Our outro. Bye, guys.
Does number 2 work for?
I will not make any deals with you. I resign. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.
I was debriefed once. I had to ask them for my underwear back.
I will not make any deals with you. I resign. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. I will not make any deals with you. I resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. I will not make any deals with you. I resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.